right, today we're with Rocco Cozza, founder of Cozza Law Firm.
Yep, that's it.
There, we said it right this time.
You did, absolutely.
Not Cozza.
No.
Not Cozza, Cozza for everybody watching. Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out to be here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an awesome studio. Happy to be here.
Appreciate it. So
Absolutely.
we'll get right into it.
Okay.
What started you in entrepreneurship?
Oh, God, I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, I was selling baseball cards, doing all the stuff that kids did. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I loved arguing when I was a kid. So I went to law school. I went to college. It was a psychology major. Ended up thinking I was going to go to grad school for psychology. Ended up getting waitlisted for a grad program. Went to law school, but I knew I always wanted to have my own thing. So I looked at the law or being a lawyer as a means to an end. I didn't want to work at a big firm and be a partner there someday. Even though I started out in big law and then went in-house, I knew I wanted to have my own firm. And when I started practicing law, started buying real estate, getting into other businesses, I just always had that bug. I wanted to do something for myself. I don't like to follow rules. I don't like to listen to what people tell me to do, so I've always kind of done things differently. So it's just been a bug I've had my entire life, honestly.
I like that. I feel like that fits us well.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, even though you might be the smartest guy, you feel like you are kind of, and you want to have like the control.
Yeah,
If you make a mistake, you want to make the mistake, or like.
That's exactly it. I want to control my own destiny. Like that's how, like when I was in corporate America, I saw so many things that were wrong with the company, but I had no control over it. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So and I knew my compensation was capped at a certain level. I said I'd rather bet on myself, and I know if I make zero, that's on me. If I make $1 gazillion, that's on me. But either way, I'm in control of it, and that's what I wanted to have. And plus, I'm a Leo. I'm a little bit of a control freak. I'm learning to let go of certain things. But yeah, that's really it. And it's I wish I would have started the firm 5 years before I did. Like looking back now, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Well, how long did you be like a corporate lawyer before switching over?
I was in that position for 14 years.
Okay.
So I started at Big Law, then I went in-house, and I anticipated being there maybe 3-4 years, but I got comfortable, got really comfortable. I made good money. I got to see the world. I was going to India, Israel, Eastern Europe on someone else's dime, places I would never go. So I was like, okay, and I just stayed there. I liked the people. I liked the position, but as the company kept changing, I realized that I couldn't make a difference anymore. It was 2018. They had they fired the CFO, who was a friend of mine, who's actually now a client. They brought in a new guy, nice guy, but I was just like, that's a sinking ship. I just walked in one day and resigned. I said,
nice.
yeah, it was one of those moments, I'm like, okay. I resigned, came back to my office. I thought it was going to be one of those movie moments where it's like, oh, this great feeling. I was like, oh, shit, what did I do? And then, went on a family vacation, came back, and I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And that was in 2018, and I was consulting with them because they didn't really have a transition plan for me, so I was doing a bunch of speaking and some other stuff, and then July 1st of 2019 is when I said I'm going to focus on a law firm and just focus on the law, and I incorporated the firm July 1st, intending to be a solo practitioner, and we have 11 employees now. We just hired our 12th, so it's growing quick.
Things
And
are going well, yeah.
Amazing.
It's overwhelming, definitely, but I love it. I wish I would have done it so much sooner.
So walk us through those days, starting out with the law firm, right after you left the routine that you had,
Yeah.
the comfortable job.
It was probably some of the worst days, honestly. It was, when you go from making multiple six figures a year to zero. Like every month I started at zero. And, you have a family, I have kids. My son was going to college in a couple of years. I had 2 young daughters. A family support. So many sleepless nights. And it was, there were many times where I was close to quitting, like just going back, getting a job. Because I was like, I don't know, what am I doing? Like, why did I put my family at risk? But then I took a step back and said, okay, what am I good at? And I said, I'm good at talking to people. Let me start there. And I just started breaking things down, like almost like, what's the first thing I have to do? Get clients. How do you get clients? Talk to people to let them know I started a firm, so people know that I'm actually doing what I'm doing, so they can find me. So that's kind of what I did. I was working with a business coach at the time who I still work with to this day, and he's the one that really changed my frame of reference, because I was doing well, but say I needed to make 10 grand a month. I was always a little bit short or a little bit over. I was never really
Comfortable.
Yeah. There was never a comfort level. So I remember one day he said, just stop focusing on the money and focus on being the best you can be. And I just changed the way I thought about things. And just said, let me focus on being the best lawyer I can be. And within a few months, my revenue tripled.
Okay.
Just because I stopped thinking about it. I
Yeah.
stopped thinking about the money. I said, how do I get better? And it was, I need to meet more people, talk to more people, market more, brand more. And I started looking at, not as a lawyer, but what was I selling? I was selling legal services. So that's really what I did. I just started selling legal services. Thought about branding, marketing, entrepreneurship, and most lawyers are traditional. They know, we're a law firm, you'll come to me. I had to go out there and get the people, and that's just what changed for me. And that's when.
Oh, so how did you end up getting these leads?
I mean, just meeting people.
It's talking. Everyone you talk.
I mean, here's what I tell people: sales is not difficult if you're a decent human being. If you treat people right, you're honest, you have integrity, you treat people with kindness and respect. It's not hard. And if you do good work, I mean, you have to do good work. But I wasn't worried about the work product. I just, people have to like and trust you. So if they like you and trust you, they're going to work for you or work with you, and then they're going to refer people to you. So, I mean, still to this day, probably 60 to 70% of our leads are referrals.
Yeah.
We do a lot of advertising, but most of it's referral based on people that like working with us. So that's what I did. I hit the pavement, that all of 2019 until the pandemic. I mean, I was probably meeting 5 to 7 people a week. Lunches, dinners, drinks, just not even potential clients, just people I knew say, hey, I started a firm. Here's what I do. Keep me in mind. And then it just snowballed. The work I did in January paid off in September. There was always like a 9-month lag, but I just kept being consistent and just putting in the effort, and that's what really worked for me.
Well, even like you said, it's referral, right? So if you go to someone that's not looking for legal service, but they know someone that does, and hey, check out this guy, So
it's staying top of mind to people. And I was even having this discussion earlier today. When it comes to potential clients, I want to be next in line. They may already have a lawyer, right, that they're working with, but eventually they may not like working with them. Eventually something may change. So as long as I'm next in line or top of mind, that's how we keep getting clients. We just stay in front of people, just provide value, provide second opinions, just act with, treat people with decency and respect, and it's not very difficult.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when starting your firm out, how did you begin building your team?
The first person I hired was an assistant because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, okay, I was just doing everything. So I feel like I need somebody to help me, and I hired Mia. She's no longer with the firm, but she was my first assistant, and she was working for me a few hours a week. And I mean, we sat in an office together, and it was like, I don't know what to tell you to do. We'll figure it out eventually. I mean, I was still answering the phones.
Okay.
So then we ended up working together really well. Then I hired Matt, who's a partner now. He was my first full-time hire, and we met. I tell the story. It was no one ever beats me to anywhere. And I'm usually always early. That's why I was so pissed when I got here right on time. But we were meeting at a Panera, and I got there an hour early, and he was already there. So I already knew him. I already liked the guy. So then we met, and he was my first time full hire. And then we just kept hiring. It's been an interesting process. We had some people leave the firm. We're always getting better in our hiring process. We think we know what we need, and then we realize they weren't the right fit, and then they kind of self-select out. We've never really had to let people go. It's just there's a self-selection process because we're getting better, faster, more efficient. But we've kind of really boiled it down to they have to have our 3 core values: be a good human being, have an entrepreneurial spirit, and be willing to get dirty. If you don't check off those 3 boxes, we won't hire you. So
what are the key things you look at to get those qualities out of someone? Is there a process when hiring someone?
Yeah, it's a lot of the questions you ask, right? I have a pretty good intuition when it comes to people and their character. So the first box I can usually check off pretty quickly. I can tell a person just the way if they stand up when you walk in the room, how they shake your hand, how they look at you, their body language. You can use how they treat our receptionist, how they treat the people on the phone they were talking to schedule the interview. That's kind of the stuff we can figure out. The entrepreneurial spirit is just asking the right questions. And when I say entrepreneurial spirit, they don't have to be an entrepreneur. They have to be able to think outside the box and ask for forgiveness, not permission. Take a chance. Do things that are outside the lines. That's okay. Not in an unethical or illegal way, but just
think differently.
Think differently. Yeah. So we ask a lot of questions when it comes to that. And then the get dirty is just you've got to be willing to do anything. I always say, if I'm washing the dishes in the kitchen, everybody else should be willing to do that too. I'm not above anything. So that's kind of what we look for. And it's really, we're still refining the interview process. It's not a perfect science. We're getting better, but we're not there yet. I mean, I say we're still a startup. and we're figuring out as we go. So it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure you're learning new stuff every day. So.
Every day, absolutely.
What are some of the major red flags that you've noticed during the interviewing process that you may have not known early on?
That's a good question. Probably the biggest red flag is when they say all the right things.
They're like a professional interviewer.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they say all the right things. They've done a little bit of research on the firm. They use the right buzzwords. Because we got duped in the beginning. We're like, oh, this person's great. Like, they said all the right stuff. And it's like, well, we just got duped. So I've learned I want real, authentic answers from people. I want to put somebody on the spot and get them to really think on their feet, not come with a prepared answer. So that's my biggest red flag. If they're, even if I try and ask questions in a way that will throw them off, and if they still give me the canned response, that's the big red flag. Because that means they're not really listening to me. They know what they want to say, and they're going to find a way to say that canned response they had.
Work that phrase into the...
Right, regardless of the question I ask. So that's probably the biggest red flag. And honestly, I watch body language. Body language will tell you more than anything than how a person talks, how they actually interact, how they sit, if they're closed off, if they're open, if they look you in the eyes, the tone of their voice when you ask them certain questions. So, I've been practicing law for 20-some years, so I've learned to read people. Those are my red flags, like their body language and the stuff they say.
And you said you had the background in psychology too,
yeah.
So I'm sure that really helps with this.
I guess it does. I didn't really thought about that, but yeah, I do have a degree in psychology, so it definitely does. And I like people. So I'm a people observer. So I've always watched people. I've always, liked having conversations with people, and I tend to. The best piece of advice I got as a young lawyer was listen more than you speak. And that was, an early mentor of mine. He said we were getting ready for trial, and I was getting ready to, second chair of trial was the first year. And he's like, just listen more than you speak. He's like, most people want to talk. He says, if you let a witness, if you be silent, a witness will tell you more than they should. So I've always just done that. I just let people talk, and you observe so much from people when because most people want to talk, right? We're always thinking about what our response is going to be. We're not really listening to understand.
I was just about to say, I heard something like most people they don't actively listen. They just listen for their next turn to talk, and
That's
not
exactly
actually
right.
absorbing what you just said.
Yeah, I always say they listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. Mm-hmm. I just try and listen to understand. And if you do that, then the conversation takes a whole different turn.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like then your words mean more. Like if the less you say, so.
Absolutely, 100%.
So how old were you when you got your first mentor?
Wow, define mentor, right? Because
sure.
When I was in high school, there were teachers that I never really looked at as mentors, but now looking back, like they told me some impactful things. So I guess those would be mentors. So probably high school was probably when I had my first unofficial mentor. And then really when I graduated law school is really when I started seeking out mentorship from people. I just knew there were people that are doing what I want to do and have become what I want to become. How do I learn from them? Like even when I started at a big firm and I would just sit in the room and just listen to people talk. I just wanted to hear how they did it. I couldn't bill for it. It wasn't doing anything for my career from a billable hours perspective or a productivity perspective. It just made me better because I was around people that were good and just observed and listened to them. And I spent hours doing that. So I was, and still to this day, I seek out mentors. I'm 46 years old.
So say there was somebody in their early 20s getting started in their career.
Okay.
What would make them stand out if they approached you and wanted you to be their mentor?
Just asking me to be their mentor, let's start there. Yeah. Most people don't even do that, right? They don't even have the guts to do that. I think what makes people stand out to me that are in that age demographic, they can communicate face to face. So lost art form in that age bracket, right? Everything's online. People are very inclined to speak behind a screen. When you get them face to face, they don't know how to interact with people. So if someone that can interact face to face, know how to shake a hand, know how to, know etiquette when someone walks into a room, and then someone that actually admits they don't know anything. Because when I was in my 20s, I thought I knew everything, right? I thought I knew everything. Now, if you come to me and you're in your mid-20s and you're seeking mentorship and you say, I don't know what I'm doing, I just want to learn from someone, that would entice me.
That's the first step.
That would entice me.
I saw your clip about embracing doubt.
Yeah.
And even now you said you still doubt yourself.
Every day.
So
Every day.
I like that a lot.
Because here's the thing, if you're not doubting yourself, you're missing something. Because there's always stuff to learn. So if I never doubt myself, that means I don't care. I just think I know everything. So I always, questioning myself every day makes me better. It sharpens my skills, because if I'm not questioning what I'm doing, I'm not really looking at it from an objective perspective. I just think I already know what to do.
Yeah, there's nothing to improve then, right?
Exactly. So I always say I'm improving every day. I just, we have at the firm, we do a state of the firm address like once a quarter. And I did it this morning. It's kind of where I give people, the update on last quarter and stuff we're going to focus on for this quarter. And I said, this quarter I want to focus on excellence. And excellence is not perfection. I would expect you to make mistakes, but it's at the end of every day, I ask myself, was I excellent today? And about 70% of the time, I'll say yes. The 30%, I say no. And then I say, what could I have improved on? And then I make an effort the next couple of days to improve on that. I just ask myself that question every day. And then I always come back to that one quote, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I say, if you shortcut in one area, you're going to shortcut in every area. So it's think about how you do things and ask yourself what you can improve upon every single day. It's as simple as that.
I like that. The everyday kind of reflection.
Yeah, cumulative.
Yeah.
It really does, and I've been doing it for years, and it helps you tremendously. Because again, like you're not gonna be excellent every day. There are days where I have a shitty day, where I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like I was lazy, I procrastinated, I watched YouTube today. Yeah, I was, it was. I sat here and was eating my lunch and found myself watching YouTube videos for an hour.
I'm a scroller sometimes.
Yeah,
you look up like an hour gone.
Right, because I tend to eat at my desk. So if I'm eating, I'll put on I'll watch something on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, an hour just went by. Like, what happened? But then I know to recognize that. Okay, like don't waste time tomorrow. And I just look at that. And I always try and say, like, look at something I can improve upon the next day.
Yeah, we've spoken about this many times where there's a lot of work to be done. We know what we have to do, but then we might watch, say, an educational video. So it's still educational. You're watching a YouTube video, say, Hermosi or one
That's
of the
what I tell
online
myself.
gurus.
I'm like, it's educational.
But it's like, well, if you would have just done the things you have to do, you'd be further ahead than just watching the same advice packaged differently. Not that those guys don't provide tremendous value, but it's like procrastinating with still making yourself feel good.
It might be even worse, too, because then you probably learn something on that video. Then you're like, oh, add to my list of things I didn't do.
Yes.
So then you just make your list.
An ADD brain starts going crazy. And
I mean, all entrepreneurs have that problem, right? We all have that. The chasing the squirrel, I always say. That's
next
really
big thing.
It is. But that's why I always say, like, every day I try and I have my, like, sacred three. Like, I know I have to get these 3 things done today. If I don't do anything else, I at least get these 3 things done, and it was a successful day from a work product perspective.
I do that sometimes. I kind of gab it once in a while, but, like, I'll have my to-do list or whatever, and, like, nothing gets added or done until those things go. And then you look back and like, oh, I didn't do that. And then you kind of like, okay, top of the list tomorrow.
Well, I make sure like those 3 things, like they always get done. Like I will stay up until it's done, just because that's kind of how I wire I may have 10 things on my to-do list, but my sacred 3 have to get done. And it could be as simple as I need to write a blog post. I need to do. It might not even be like work. It could be I need to post a video, and I'll make sure it can be like 11:30 at night. I'm laying in bed. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to do that. I'll get up and do it just to make sure it's off my list. 'Cause I can't go to sleep until it's off my list.
So what does your daily routine usually look like? I know you perform at a very high level, so.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. I'm very regimented when it comes to my week. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. Like my alarm's set at 4. If I need sleep, I'll sleep till 4:15. I get up. I literally have the same routine every morning. I make a cup of coffee. I work out. I do a little bit of work. I play brain games every morning, and then I'm usually in the office between 6:30 and 7. And then that first hour is typically before anybody else gets in there. I'm usually getting some work done, and then when my assistant gets in, she comes in usually around 7:20, and every day she gives me a folder that has the things I need to do, the calls I have, the meetings I have. And then from there, the day can go any different ways. But that morning is always the same. From 4 a.m. till about 7:38, it's always the same. Then the rest of the day really is, I have meetings scheduled. I have a lot of different things going on. No day's the same, and then I'm usually out of the office by 5:36. In the evening, I'm pretty much, I pretty much do the same things every evening to work out and then tidy up the day at the end of the evening, like finish off emails, write my to-do list for the next day. It's not very exciting. But my morning has been the same for years.
I'm sure if that gets messed up, everything, or I guess it doesn't get messed up. But
it doesn't get messed up.
Yeah.
It doesn't get messed up. Like that is a non-negotiable to me, like a truly non-negotiable. So it's and if I don't do something that morning, it's like it throws me off completely.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So but that is and that's because I like to bookend my day, so I at least know I have those two things figured out, and the rest is easy from there.
Yeah, we've had a few other guests, also entrepreneurs, and everybody talks about working out as a pillar.
Yeah.
Zach and I, we usually hit the gym at least 4 or 5 times a week or do something regarding physical activity.
Yeah.
How important do you think that is to being a high
Honestly,
performer?
it's the most important thing, to be honest with you, because I look at it I've actually taken even more. I've always been into fitness and sports and working out, but over the past couple of years, I've realized how important it is because I'm responsible for more people now. Like I have all these employees I'm responsible for. So if I'm not at my best, I can't perform for them. So fitness, and it's not even just like it's just being functional and being healthy. Like this was the first year I paid to have an executive physical done, which is an expensive thing to do, but they literally test everything. It's an all-day physical. So I'm like, I just want to just make sure everything's good. Yeah. And like I'll do that every year from now on. So I'm really taking my health and wellness I get vitamin IVs, like it's so important because if I'm off, everything suffers. Because I have to be so productive every day because I'm doing the work and running the business. So if I'm not at my best, like everything's off. So I'm constantly focused on that.
That's an interesting way to put it, because normally I feel like we talk about it more as in like you're doing all this work, right, with your mind, you know. So like doing something physical kind of balances you out. But like to actually think about like the health and like how your body's functioning. And you know, obviously living long and a healthy life, that makes sense too.
And it makes you feel like if I feel good, I perform at a better level. Like if I have any hint of like a little bit of a sickness, I'm so off. So like I have, even when I'm feeling a little bit, like I lost my voice a couple weeks ago and still not back fully. And it's even though I feel completely fine, it's driving me crazy because it's not back completely. Yeah. But I I'll like I do with the vitamin IVs. I take a lot of supplements to just try and stay as healthy as possible because I have to be at 100% every day. Like I truly feel like I have to be.
Yeah, the executive physical, that's very interesting. I haven't heard of that one.
It's like I don't know where I heard it from. Someone on social media actually. I was watching. I can't remember who it was, and I called the one doctor, and it was like out in Phoenix. And it was like a stupid amount of money. I'm not doing that. So like they got to have it around here. Like we're a big medical place. So I found Allegheny Health, and it was, I think it was like $3,000 or $4,000. But they run all these tests, and what I love is you go in there, you have a concierge. They walk you into this room. You don't wait for anything. You get your blood work. You do all this stuff. You do EKG, cardiogram, like DEXA scan.
Put you through the works.
they really do, but it's good because it's like I'm 46 years old. I wanted to know if I'm good, and like everything came back clean. So now it's like okay, like I have a good baseline, and I'll do that every year because it's worth the money to me. Because I feel like normal doctors, they look at basic stuff. Like I even started going to a functional medicine doctor years ago because my hormones were all screwed up. Like I felt off as a guy. I'm like, something's not right. And my doctor's like, oh, you're fine. You just, your testosterone's low, but you're older, it's happening. I went to a functional doctor, like, yeah, your hormones are way off. Like we can adjust those. And they put me on a low dose thyroid and testosterone replacement therapy. And it literally changed everything for me. But amazing. A normal doctor wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I have to keep that in mind because it's kind of scary though. Like if you go to a doctor and you're fine, and then obviously there's something off.
Well, because they have this range, right? They said, oh, the normal testosterone range is, I don't know the exact, we'll say like 100 to 900. And I was like 180. Like you're within the normal range. When I went to the functional, they're like, yeah, that's normal for like an 80-year-old man. Like you want to be around 600-700 to be functioning at the level you want to function at. So they just put me on hormone replacement, and it literally within a month I felt like a completely different person.
It's amazing how finding the right doctor can make such a difference.
It really does, and it's a shame because I know it's a lot to do with insurance and just the rules they have to follow. But I mean, to have someone that can really look at you, and I just actually referred one of my clients over to the doctor that I go to, and he sent me a text. He's like, thank you so much. I feel like you saved my life because they found stuff wrong that he just needed some adjustments on that he wasn't feeling right, but his doctor wasn't catching it, which is amazing to me. So it's there's a whole different world when it comes to health and wellness. I feel
it
really is.
There's a lot of egos too in the doctor offices. It's like you want to, you do some research yourself, and you might have figured it out, but once you say it to them, they don't really like that. Typically, there are great doctors out there, but I've had my fair share of experiences with ones.
I feel like they don't respect your opinion much at all.
Well, I mean, look, I'll say this from a lawyer's perspective too. Like, we have clients that do that as well. They'll go on the internet and do their own research, and it's like, okay, great, but that's wrong. So there are
I guess that's true.
There are times where they're right, but like I always joke, because we have a lot of clients that have called in over the past probably 6 to 9 months. If you've been on TikTok or social media, everybody's talking about a trust, owning a holding company, owning all your LLCs, which is a great concept and a great structure when you have a lot of shit. We have clients that will call and be like, hey, I need to get an entity set up. Like, okay, like, I don't have a business yet, but I need a trust, I need a holding company, I want to set up 3 LLCs. I'm like, okay, what do you own? Well, nothing. I said, how about we start with one thing?
Yeah.
But they were on, I said, I always ask, which TikTok video did you watch? They're like, what do you mean? I said, well, I've seen these. And they're like, oh, yeah, I did. Because there's a lot of it's not bad information. It's information that's not ripe.
Yeah.
So these clients will see it, and they're like, they think they have to have all this stuff. And yes, that structure makes sense, if you have a lot of assets,
at a certain level, for sure,
money, different businesses. But if you are buying your first rental property, you do not need 5 companies and a trust. You don't need that yet. So we always try and tell clients, I'm not going to take your money to do all this stuff because you don't need it, but it's the internet.
Do people ever just say, that's what I want, just do it?
I won't do it. I won't do it. Because I'm not going to take somebody's money when I don't think, I will tell them, I said, look, I understand that, and maybe we're not the right fit for you, because I don't want to put you into something that's going to cost a lot of money that you may never use, and it's a waste to me. So I'm not in this profession for the money. It's about the relationship. So there's plenty of times I tell clients I'm not going to do that because you don't need it. It's a waste of money. It's truly, truly is.
That makes sense. Yeah. Goes back to the good guy or be a good person,
that's
right?
It. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we know our goal as a firm is to give clients peace of mind, and that may be telling them you don't need this, or that's not a good idea. Like, there's been plenty of clients I said, love it. I love where your head is at. That idea is not going to work. I've seen other people try and it doesn't work, and they and you'll see a lot of there's a lot of younger kids that come out of certain schools that have been told that their idea is brilliant, and it's just not. Like, it may be a brilliant idea, but it doesn't solve a problem. So if it doesn't solve a problem, who's going to buy it?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I try and tell people, and some people don't like that, but I try to be very straight. Like, I'm not going to take somebody's money just to do it if I don't think it'll work. And I'm sure there's people out there that will, but that's not us.
And that's why you use Cozza Law Firm.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why they have so many referrals.
Yes, exactly. We just try and do it right by people. Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I saw that you guys focus on business and entertainment.
Yes, we have really 4 practices. So business law, commercial litigation, estate plan, then entertainment law. That's a lot of what I do is entertainment law. I do most of the entertainment law in the firm. That makes about 25% of my practice.
Okay, and how do those differ when it comes to, say, client attraction?
So entertainment law is really just business law within the entertainment industry.
Okay.
So, but it's framed as entertainment law because it's a certain type of client, right? It's the entertainment client. They all kind of interrelate, right? Businesses get sued, so we do commercial litigation. Every business owner needs an estate plan. They need to have their assets protected. They need to say what's going to happen to all their stuff when they die. So they're all of our practices are complementary. Like, we don't do criminal law, we don't do family law, we don't do personal injury. It's all business to business or for business owners. The entertainment law is just an offshoot of business law in that space, because I was working with athletes and entertainers, so I just kind of fell into that space, and it's fun. I like it, but clients can also be challenging because they're a certain type of individual, and but truly they're all from a client attraction perspective. I mean, every client that comes in the door, if they're a business client, they can talk to our estate planning group. If they're an estate planning client, they can talk to the business group. If they're getting sued, they should talk to everybody. So we have a lot of ability to cross-sell within the organization. So we don't really have to go out and segregate the way we attract clients, because the same clients could fit into all, except the entertainment's a little bit different. But from a business perspective, all of those clients can go across all 3 practice areas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to act like I completely understand everything. Okay. But 90% of it does. I'm not an expert on law by any means.
That's fine. That's fine.
I've been watching a lot of Suits. I don't know what that means.
It's a great show. It's a good show. I like that show. Even though it would never work, it would never happen, right? But it's a good show.
What do you think are the biggest differences between Suits and then real life law? Now that we're on the topic,
you've got to be licensed to practice law. That's first and foremost. In a law, cases don't get resolved that quick. Like they make it sound like, oh, we found the smoke. They find a smoking gun in every case, and it always gets resolved. And it just doesn't happen. It's just the law is a slow-moving process, especially when it comes to litigation. Like we tell clients, let's avoid litigation at all costs because it takes. We make the money. I don't want to take people's money to fight over something if I don't think they're going to win. And it takes so much time. It's a drain on people's energy. Very rarely do cases get resolved quickly. That's the big difference.
Is it also like, are cases more like just straightforward, or they're more like, because I feel like a lot of like these shows or movies, like every case, like you said, like this weird case, and they find this weird, precedent, whatever.
Those are few and far between.
It's more just straightforward.
It's like, you didn't pay me. We have a contract. You breached a contract. You owe me a bunch of money. I'm going to sue you. They're like, I don't want to pay you because you screwed something up. That's mostly, or there's an employment issue. Like you fired me and you shouldn't have fired me, or you did something wrong. And that's, there's really, I've been practicing law, 20-some years. I've seen maybe a handful of really complex, like smoking gun cases. Most of them are cases that should be resolved before litigation, but one side just digs their heels in. And they're just like, nope, we're going to keep fighting. It's okay, well, then they waste a bunch of money and they get pissed in the end because the lawyers make the money and they don't. And that's the problem. So we try and advise clients as much as possible. Let's try and resolve it pre-suit. It's easier for everybody, and it's less time and money for everybody.
Okay, so it's a red flag if somebody hires a lawyer and they want to, keep going and cause as much conflict as possible.
And there are people that so there are people that do that, and there are certain instances where that makes sense, right? Okay. If they're trying to set a precedent, right? If an employee leaves and tries to take a bunch of employees or intellectual property, they're going to sue them because they got to make sure they're protecting their business interests.
Make an example out.
Yeah, and it's not even make an example. It's kind of the way you look at it is you can't cherry pick when you enforce certain things, right? If I have confidentiality and IP agreements with all of my employees, and I say, hey, you can't take my stuff. We have this agreement because this is a business interest. It's very important to this company. But I don't enforce it against everybody, then how can I go to a court and say, it's so important you should enforce this when I didn't enforce it against 5 other people? So at the very least, we say send cease and desist letters to people when they leave. Make sure they understand you take this seriously. So at least we can go to a court if we have to and say, we protect our interests when everybody leaves. It's not just when we feel like it or when we want to cherry pick it.
One case. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then so it's but we don't tell people to litigate every case, right? It's a cost-benefit analysis. It's if a person leaves, because a lot of people get pissed when people leave. It's like, people are going to leave. Are they taking clients? Like, well, no, but they're going to take, they're going to try and talk to people. I said, okay, we'll send a cease and desist, but if you're not losing any money, or if they fire someone and then that person tries, I said, you fired the person. They weren't that good. Like, don't pay me $20,000 to go sue this person. We'll send them a letter, and obviously they weren't successful here. Do you think they're going to be successful somewhere else?
Don't waste your time or money trying to get after that person.
It's really talking about that, like doing that cost-benefit analysis. It's an important kind of thing to look at, and there's a sensitive way to do it, because sometimes clients just want to make the example, and it's my job to tell them, let's weigh all the factors and make sure we're doing this the right way.
Yeah, that's where ego can be the enemy. And you got to go the stoic approach.
Yeah, I'm a stoic. I believe in stoicism through and through. Like that is my philosophy on life, and I always try and be level-headed about things. Now, also I'm Italian. I can get emotional and get passionate about things, but when it comes to representing my clients, I try and keep a very even-keeled level head about things and just say, let's look at this from all perspectives, because I don't want them to spend money they don't need to spend or waste time they don't need to waste.
That makes a lot of sense. So just on the topic of stoicism, any books that you recommend? I know Ryan Holiday is very big.
All of his are good. Yeah. I mean, Meditations by Marcus. If you haven't read that, that's the first one you have to read. I mean, it's a hard read. But it's the basis of Stoicism. It really is, his Meditations book. I mean, but all of Ryan Holiday's are good. Like, one of my favorite ones he did is The Obstacle is the Way. That's probably my favorite one that he's written. And then, I mean, there's a ton of books out there. I can't think of any off the top of my head other than that one, right? Because I just read it again. But Marcus Aurelius, I mean, I have that on my iPad, and I would go back to that all the time. And I always say Stoicism isn't about not having emotion. it's not getting emotional about things you can't control. Like, you can only control what you can control, and if I can't control something, why do I get emotional about it? Like, why do I let it upset me? But some people get upset about things they can't control, but have already happened. It's like, you're just wasting energy. Just move on.
Yeah, don't even think about that stuff. Like
yeah, I mean,
you can't control it anyways.
Yeah, it's really, but it's hard for people because we're emotional creatures by nature, and I think people tend to let emotion get the best of them. I mean, I used to be like that, and now I've kind of learned to just change my outlook on things, and if I can't control it, I move on. Truly. Another good book, I mean, Jack Canfield's The Success Principles. It's not stoicism, but there's some principles, the principle in that book that really changed my life. I think I read it when I was in my 20s. This formula, E plus R equals O, an event plus a reaction equals an outcome. And he's like, you can control everything in your life because you control one of the variables always. You either control the event or how you react to it. So you always can control the outcome.
I've never heard that one. I like that one.
I mean, I've lived by that principle for almost 20 years. It's like, if I can't control what happened, I can control how I react to it. So therefore, I can control the outcome. If someone cuts me off in traffic, I can get pissed or not. I don't have to get pissed, and so okay, you move on. But so many people don't think about the reaction to things. They just think about the event and then let the reaction just take on a nature of its own.
Yeah, get outraged for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Just to give you a little context about the Marcus Aurelius book. So he's essentially an emperor who kind of has anger problems, and it's like his private diary or journal that he writes just about his daily thoughts, and it's very very
yeah. I mean, I know about stoicism. I see a lot of videos and read some stuff, but no books. So I have to check those out.
I mean, it's really. I mean, it was really, and I say this with all seriousness, it was really life changing to me.
Really.
Because I'm in an adversarial profession, right? The law. It's very adversarial. I'm Italian. I'm a Leo, so I'm going to be an emotionally charged person. When I started learning about stoicism, it really kind of calmed me down. So I don't let things bother me. I don't get really stressed out or let things. And people get frustrated because we'll be in a situation like, how do you stay so calm? Like, well, I can't control certain things, so what's the point about getting upset about it? So I would highly recommend, if you're a person that kind of has those emotional ups and downs, look into stoicism. The only two tattoos I have are both Stoic sayings: memento mori and amor fati. Memento mori means we will die, or you will die. So it means remember to live life to the fullest. Amor fati means the love of fate. I mean, play the hand you're dealt. Like, you can't change it, so play it.
I've heard the first one before, the memento mori, but yeah, I like it.
So I was watching another one of your clips, and you were talking about how important it is to live in the moment. Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more, but why do you believe that so much?
Because that's all we have, right? Like, I used to always in the past think about the past and future, and we'll just miss what's right in front of me. And like, truly, like, all we have is this moment right now. So I just learn to slow down, because I think, again, as entrepreneurs, our brain never turns off, right? We're thinking about the shit we did in the past we could have done differently, the things we have to do looking forward, the future. Once I started just living in the present, it makes life more enjoyable, because you're actually now embracing what's going on. You're actually present with the people. You're present in the conversation. I'm present with my kids. I'm present with my family. It's a different way of living, and it's truly been something that changed a lot of things for me. But it's hard to do, because you have to really force yourself to slow down. You really do.
I do think it's hard, yeah. Like you said, you have so much things going on. Like, I know you have a family and whatnot. Like, it's hard to kind of turn that off. But if you don't, then you miss that moment. So.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where, look, am I perfect? No. Like, there are times where I'm distracted, but I try and always, that's why I like when I'm meeting with a person, I don't have my phone out. Like, if I'm in a face-to-face meeting, like, my phone's nowhere on the table. It's in my pocket or in my bag. Like, I want to be present with the person and really be engaged. And just doing that simple thing, putting your phone away, changes the dynamic of a conversation.
What advice would you give to someone that finds their mind, say, wandering, looking at the past, or maybe having anxiety about the future and thinking too much into that? How do you stay focused in the present moment?
Yeah, that's I say we're always going to worry about the future. It's hard to not worry about the future, but I always say, what am I really worrying about? And that's why I try and look at, okay, when I start worrying or feeling that anxiety creep up, I tend to take a step back and say, okay, what am I really worrying about? Sometimes it's just the unknown, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I tell myself, well, how could I know? It's the future. So then I really just take myself back and say, okay, all I can do is just live right now and say, what's the next step? And just do that and just stop thinking so far down. Like, there's that one, God, what's the book? I can't think of the name of the book, but it's like The Boy, the Horse, and something. And it's talking about, there was a quote on social media about it, and he was saying a boy and a horse are standing at the edge of the woods, and the boy's like anxious because he can't see the path, and the horse, I think it's the horse who talks. Maybe the horse is the one that talks, or maybe I have it wrong, but he says to the boy, "Can you see the next step?" And the boy says, "Yes." He's like, "Well, just take that." And the whole point of it is like, don't worry about what you can't see, just take the next step that you can see. And that, for some reason, that resonated with me. It's like, I don't have to know what's going to happen a year from now. I just need to know what's going to happen, the next hour, and just do that and just keep executing like that. And then the rest kind of takes care of itself. And it's that quote in and of itself got me to slow down.
I think you made a good point with like the whole like unknown, like how could you know like that part, but just taking the kind of the smaller steps and pieces of, the most important step is the next one, right? So
I mean, we get so worried about the stuff that we couldn't even know. Like, even if we tried, like, I can't see the future. If I could, I wouldn't be a lawyer. I mean, I'd be doing something way different. I'd be like in the circus performing or something. But it's really about just taking the next step, truly, and not worrying about. We all want to know what's going to happen, 5 years from now or 3 years from now, but what's going to happen 5 minutes from now? Just worry about that, and then just keep moving forward. That's really it.
Just compounding that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, truly, that's as simple. It's as simple as that, and I hate to oversimplify it, but that's how I look at life.
Oh, let's go completely against that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Where do you see Cozza Law Firm in the next 5 years?
Well, we do a lot of analysis on this. We're going through the whole EOS process. So we've been building out like our vision. Our 10-year vision is 100 employees.
Wow.
So our 5-year vision is, we said we'd be at 40 employees in 5 years and in 4 states. So I think, but again, that's the goal. Where we end up, it's going to be, like when I started the firm, I intended to be a solo practitioner. Didn't intend to build a law firm. That I just kept seeing the field of play get bigger. I'm like, okay, well, I can do this. We can hire more people, and we can get more clients, and that we could have shot small. I don't know. Like, I'm just focused on the next 3 months right now. Like, that's how I look at it. So we have these goals, right? We always, the EOS process, the entrepreneurial operating system, it's a whole, like, how you kind of run an organization. So we're going through this whole, it's like a 2-year process, and part of it is building out your vision. And that, that 100 employees is our 10-year vision, and, have some other things with that. But I look at it as, that's kind of the big picture goal, but it's really about just executing every quarter and saying, how do we keep getting better? How do we get more efficient? How do we bring in more clients, drive revenue? But I do believe within 5 years, what's that, 2029, we'll have 40 to 50 employees easily, and we'll probably, we've been growing since I started the firm 40 to 50% revenue year over year. I think that'll obviously slow down. We can't keep doing that, but I think, we'll be a significant size firm. But my biggest goal is to keep the culture the way it is. Like, culture is everything to me. Making sure we have the right people in the right seats, and we treat people the right way. And that's my job as the leader of the firm, to make sure that stays that way. So, however big we get, I want to make sure we still feel like a small family.
As leader of the firm, how do you keep that culture on a daily basis?
It's the hardest thing to figure out, I'm being honest with you. It really is, because, like, and that was the problem I had last quarter. Like, I realized I was so head down in the work, and we had a lot of, like, just, I don't want to say upset in the firm. Like, we had, like, things changed, 2 people left that were unexpected just because of life things that happened, and it was a lot of, my head was down. I wasn't paying attention to the culture, and I felt it go a little off. So now, like, my focus this quarter is really get back on track, and it's really about just making sure, one, I'm accessible to everybody, I'm engaged with everybody, and 2, making sure we are all addressing problems. Like, the one thing we instituted this year is the no bullshit policy. It's like, if you have an issue with someone, you have till 5 o'clock to address it. If you don't address it by 5 o'clock, it's not an issue. It's just an annoyance. So we're trying to do things like that, to look at things that have caused upset in the culture, and how do we address them? And a lot of it was like people were just, they weren't saying things to others. It's like, well, you have to just talk for adults.
Keeping it like bottled up.
Yeah, they would keep it bottled up and make it bigger than it was, make it a worse problem than it really was. Now it's like, okay, let's just institute this no BS policy. You got till 5 o'clock. If you have a problem with something, like if I did something to piss you off, address it by 5 o'clock. If you don't address it by the end of the day, is it really a problem? Right? It might be an annoyance to you, but it's not really a problem that needs addressed.
Something small that.
Yeah, and it's really just trying, keeping the team engaged. We do a lot of team building events and trying, we have a kegerator in the office, like we have beer in the office together, and it's really just making sure that, I have a pulse on the organization. I have a pulse on how people's mental state is, how they're feeling, and that's the hardest part, because I'm also running the firm and doing the work and living life, so it's the hardest part of my job, the culture. Really
I'm sure. I mean, especially if you're still doing all like the legal work, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, now you have to manage. What'd you say, 11 or 12 employees?
Yeah, there'll be our 12th employee. She starts September 9th. So. We just hired her, so she starts. She's a new attorney, so yeah, she'll be number 12. So it's wild. There's a lot of people there now. It's like, wow, that's a lot of people, a lot of payroll.
That's impressive.
it's definitely overwhelming sometimes.
Plus, as you learn to, or continue to learn to hire like better people, I'm sure that just they'll fit better, easier.
And that's true. Like the people we're hiring now, they are really good. Like we have such a good team right now. Like I'm so thankful for the employees we have, and they truly are the salt of the earth. And I think that we just got to keep building on that. Like we have a really good core foundation of people, and now it's my job to make sure we just keep building on that.
When you do expand, or you look to expand, are you looking to get into other maybe facets of the law, or are you still keeping just like the business?
Yes, that's a good question. That's something we've contemplated, because the next area we would possibly get into is potentially family law, because our clients are business owners. If they get divorced, like we'd like to be able to represent them, but it would be more of, we would acquire a practice. Like that's how I look at it. We wouldn't hire someone to build out a family law practice. We'd probably say, hey, like bring somebody out of a firm that wants to bring their book of business. But I don't think we'll ever be a full service, do everything. Bankruptcy, criminal law, personal injury, Social Security. Like we're a business firm, so we will do facets of business law and things that are kind of complementary to it.
I actually think that's better. I mean, I don't know if it is or not, but like when George mentioned I used you guys as a question, I think last year for one of my businesses. Yeah. Like these ones that have it all, I was kind of thinking, well, they must not be specialized.
Exactly right. That's
so I'm
exactly
thinking like this is just purely business. So yeah. I mean, I think that does make a lot of sense.
It helps us definitely focus, because and that's what I tell people. I always use the example, because when you're a lawyer, when your family thinks you know everything about the law, I'm like, I'm not a general practitioner. I'm a cardiologist. And somehow when you use a doctors as the example, they get it. I'm like, you go to your family doctor to tell you have a heart problem. You go to the cardiologist to get it fixed. I said, we are the cardiologists. We're just business lawyers. So you can go to the guy down the street that kind of does everything, and he may say, yeah, you've got a problem, but you come to us to solve the problem, because that's all we do is business stuff. So that's how I like to explain. So that's why I always think we'll be really niche focused, and we just may expand into complementary areas that would serve our current clients, but not go out and get a whole new client base.
And you mentioned expanding into a few states.
Yeah.
Do you know what states those are?
I mean, we're already in New York and Tennessee right now. So we have we have a co-working space in New York, and we just opened an office in Nashville just in April, and I've been down there a couple of times. So the next one will be Florida, because we're licensed in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, New York, Tennessee, and Florida. So our next state would be Florida. We'd like to open it. And right now we're just, we have co-work spaces, addresses, and offices there, but don't have any employees sitting in those states yet until we find the right people. Like I'd like to hire someone in Nashville pretty soon if we can find the right person, but we haven't been able to do that yet.
That makes sense.
And what do you look for in that person that you're trying to find, run in a whole location?
Yeah, that's so. The way we're looking at that in other markets, it's going to be a lot of these firms now, or people are leaving big firms because, just use a simple example. Say you have $1 million book of business, and you go and work at a big firm. Your total comp for that year, based upon your $1 million book, maybe $300,000. We're looking at saying, hey, you want to leave that firm, bring your book of business to us. you keep 70% of it. We'll take 30% to cover the overhead and the admin costs. So we're trying to find people like that to get started. Like, I don't think I'm going to hire an employee to just pay them a salary to develop business. I want to try and buy a book of business or bring someone over that has a book of business and do a fee split with them. But they got to fit still our core values, kind of the way we operate. So that's the challenge. Find someone with that book of business that also has everything else. So that's just going to be a challenge that we have. It'll take some time, I think.
Okay. Yeah, not that my opinion means much in this. You could always go the apprentice route.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem like you'd be great on TV.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we do that, but I mean, never know. I mean, there's a possibility. Look, I'm a risk taker, so nothing's out of my wheelhouse. I would always be willing to try something that made sense. But we've talked to a few recruiters down in Nashville, and I kind of told them what I'm looking for. So we'll see if they come up with anything. Who knows?
How do those areas differ versus Pittsburgh?
It's funny. Like, Nashville's a lot like Pittsburgh.
Really?
I mean, it really is. Like, I've been on there a few times, and it has kind of, I mean, it's more of a music vibe, obviously, but the people are awesome. I mean, New York's New York, but there's just something about Nashville I really like. It's, one, I love live music. Two, the city is just, it's always alive, and there's a ton of opportunity. Like, I was just down there in July, and I met with a couple attorneys down there, and there's a ton of opportunity because there's these small niche firms that are doing like very specific things than big firms. There's not a lot of firms like us that kind of fall in the middle that will do the, $20 million M&A deals or the smaller companies. So it's just getting down there more and having a presence down there. We just got to get there more.
Plus, I feel like it's a growing city, obviously, and I feel like everyone we know that's been down there loves it. But
it's wild.
With it growing, I'm sure there's new business all the time. So you guys will fit right in.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever been there?
No, I've not. I've been wanting to go for a while.
I mean, it is. I mean, the first time I was there, I was just blown away by it's crazy. Like, just people are out at all hours of the day, all days of the week. I mean, it's nuts, but it's a lot of fun. If you like live music, the city is amazing. Truly, it is.
Yeah, I mean, every video or picture I see, it just looks like it's everyone's vibing down there, just having a good time.
I mean, the first time I went there, it was for a conference, and I went for the weekend. And I stayed off of Broadway, which is like the main road down there. And I was leaving Sunday morning to go to the hotel, the conference which is out of the city. And it was like 8:00 in the morning. I'm at my hotel, waiting for my Uber, and I see those bikes where they have people sitting and they're drinking.
Yeah.
So okay. Like 10. There was a bachelorette party that drove by at like 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday, drunk out of their mind. I'm thinking to myself, either they've been up since the night before, or they got up so early and they're all drunk. I'm like, this city is crazy. It wasn't a Saturday. It was a Sunday morning. I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, I'm in a different world. Yeah. It was totally wild. It's definitely worth going to.
Too much fun at brunch, huh?
I mean, it was before brunch.
They're on the way to brunch.
I mean, it was 8 a.m. I mean, I was just getting a cup of coffee. It was so early. I'm like, man, that's impressive. Yeah. Very impressive. So
that's a good question. Was it the into the night or?
I thought about that all day long. I'm like, I sat there. I'm like,
just distracting you with that one question.
It really did. I'm like, how? Because I mean, they were probably like in their late 20s, early 30s. I'm like, man, and they were like wild at 8:00 in the morning. And I thought about that all day. I'm like, were they up since last night? Because I'm like, that's impressive. I couldn't do that at that age. I said, or they got up so early and have been pounding drinks. That's impressive as well. It was just it threw me off that whole day. It definitely did. It was wild.
Yeah, I'd say after like 25, that's when I couldn't do that.
I definitely couldn't do it. I was like,
that.
I mean, it was.
There's no way I would get up at 5 o'clock to start drinking.
No way, no way, man. They're built different down there. They definitely are.
So, when advertising in these different places, do you switch up the messaging, or is
the messaging is always the same, and it's because it's truly like our two talents are one, we're redefining legal services, trying to do it differently to give clients peace of mind. So that messaging will always be the same. It may be where we advertise may be different, and we haven't spent a ton of money in the other jurisdictions yet, just because there's no need to right now. Just social media advertising, some Google AdWords stuff where we expanded our areas, but until we have a bigger presence and more of a bandwidth in those jurisdictions, we probably won't spend a ton of money advertising. What we may do in the Nashville area is do some sponsorships of local events. Like, I've already talked to a few people for the fall and the winter to sponsor events, and then go to and show our face, appear, exactly, like meet people, meet the right people, but they got to be the right events where there's going to be the right players there. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So there won't be a ton of ad spend. It'll be more of like a sponsorship spend, I think, in those jurisdictions.
Yeah, just trying to make a presence down there.
Yeah, just trying to get to know people. That's really it. It's really just getting to know people, shaking hands, and just letting people know, hey, we're here. Here's what we do. We'd love to connect with you. That's really it.
Yeah, because you guys do an excellent job with your advertising in the Pittsburgh area. Zach and I both found you, and we didn't know we both worked with you until today.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have a great team. Like we have an internal marketing person, Kylie, who does all of our like social media. A lot of our outreach. I have a PR firm we work with who's been doing a lot of stuff for like me for like speaking events and press releases. And then I have my web team. They do the Google ad stuff. And again, I think we've built a presence online, and we've done a lot of organic stuff, like organic blogs and videos. So I think it's just all kind of over the years just worked. So
just kind of snowballs.
It does. I think, and that's what I tell people. Like you got to be consistent, right? You can't just do it for a little bit and stop. Like other lawyers I know that have firms, like you just got to be. It's not magic. You just got to be consistent and do a lot of it over time, and just eventually it snowballs and works. But it may take 9 to 12 months until you see the impact of it.
And how long have you been making organic content for?
I mean, since I started the firm, honestly, when I left corporate America, I mean, I was blogging and doing videos since then. So it's been 5 years, definitely.
Yeah, you put the reps in for sure.
Yes, and I'm still not anywhere close to where I want to be. And that's the thing. It's just like I feel like we're just getting started and just figuring things out. So it's a lot of work. It really is, because you have to just creating content's work, right? I mean, just trying to figure out what to create, what makes sense, what people want to know, the value, and just being authentic about it, like not creating content for content's sake, but providing value to people. Like that's the biggest thing I look at, and that's why sometimes I may not have a video, because I'm like, I don't know if people want to hear, but we're starting to like look at it differently and say, okay, let's look at the clients we talk to and what are the common questions they have, and starting to put together stuff like that is what we're trying to do now. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten better over the years and figured out more, but
yeah, like I definitely, I mean, it's easier for me to create content now because it just comes more natural, but it's, if I had someone that did all the research for me and said, hey, here's 20 topics to talk about or write about, no problem. It's where I get caught up is trying to figure out what to say. The idea. Like I can do it, it's just I have other things to do that are more important in my mind. Yeah. So that's why I kind of get caught up with that type of stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we always like to end the podcast with giving some actionable advice to those greedy pigs out there, all the entrepreneurs watching. So if you were to narrow it down, just one piece of advice to somebody that's interested in entrepreneurship or just starting out, what would that be?
Don't quit. I mean, truly, like you will want to quit so many times because it is by far, entrepreneurship is the hardest thing you ever do. I mean, it really is, because there's no playbook. There's people out there that sell courses. There's people that say, follow me and you'll figure it out. Everybody's different. There's really no playbook. But the biggest thing I've learned with entrepreneur myself and representing hundreds of entrepreneurs is the most successful ones, they're not the smartest. They just don't quit. And that's really it, because if you just keep going, because it always gets the hardest before it gets easy.
We always say it's a roller coaster.
It is, and I even look back at my journey and other people I've talked to. Right before it works is when it gets really hard. Is when you want to give up and quit. It's just like nothing's working, everything's broken. I haven't figured it out, and then all of a sudden something clicks and everything changes. I've seen it happen hundreds of times. So it's not magic. Just don't quit. If you go on the path, just assume you're going to go until you succeed. And if you keep that in your head, you say, I'm not going to quit until I succeed, you'll be fine. Truly.
Great advice.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Of course.
All right, make sure to go to Cozza, not Cozza. Cozza.
Either way you want to say
Group.
it, it's fine.
For all of your lawyer needs.
Yes.